What's up, profitable stylists? Am I excited this week? Bernard and I have the grandest pleasure of getting to chat with Robert Reed, industry icon, the founder of Ergo Styling Tools. Good morning, Robert.
Good
Good
morning.
morning. Good morning from Southern California.
Yeah,
No,
I know it's nice and early, so thank you for waking up and joining us this morning. Bernard, good morning to you too, buddy.
good morning. A few
So,
minutes ago, a few minutes ago, Robert said, right before we get started, I'm going to walk outside. I thought we're not doing that here in Louisiana. We're trying to stay inside. It's so freaking hot, so hot and muggy. So good for you for the good weather.
It would be 105 today, but it's a
But
dry heat, so it's
so it
good
feels
for the
like
hair.
it's
it's a dry heat. Well, right, because here it'll be 90 today, but it'll feel like 120 because as soon as you walk outside, that humidity sticks to you. All right, so guys, today this is different. I'm a little nervous because it's a topic I don't know as much about. And many of our videos are about hair extensions. And man, do I know hair extensions. I can just talk for days and days. And I know Eddie's more excited than even I am today because he knows this company. He knows these tools and he loves them so much. And he's always talking about you, Robert, and all of your tools. And so to get you on here, it's exciting. But I'm going to be that uneducated hairdresser to your product. So I'll ask the questions probably that the average stylist might ask, like, wait. I don't get what y'all are saying. I've had the opportunity to use some of your tools on stage at some hair shows that you've provided, Darren and Eddie at the shows. But being out from behind the chair for about a decade now, I'm not using a lot of tools. So I'm picking up whatever my stylists are liking here and there, and it's not always the best tools. But occasionally when I get an ergo flat iron in my hand or a brush, I do feel the difference. It's definitely better than your average supply house store bought tool by far. It really is. But you go, Eddie. You running this day.
I have to say a disclaimer. A lot of you know that I represent a distributorship called Hair's the Bling outside of Chicago. We at Hair's the Bling, we do distribute the Ergo brushes. And so I do have a vested interest in promoting Ergo brushes and Ergo styling tools as well. But in addition to promoting them and selling them, offering them to the salons, I personally just absolutely adore. I love the Ergo brushes and the styling tools. It has made such a difference in my life. My body posture is really messed up. Coming up on 30 years of being in the industry, my shoulder's messed up. I'm in physical therapy twice a week. Using the Ergo brushes and the styling tools and the flat iron, especially the flat iron and the blow dryer, it's really saved my shoulder. It's physically saved my life. So I'm very personally invested as well as from a business standpoint invested. And Robert, I mean, you and we've been doing shows together for over 10 years now. So we've gone through a lot of stuff. We've been through a lot of hair shows with each other.
Well, we've been through a lot of hair shows, a lot of experiences. When we do hair shows, this is our opportunity to get feedback from our customers, the professional, about what they need. Because everything at Ergo comes from the mind of a hairdresser. Every great idea in our industry came from a hairdresser. Just think about the icons who have preceded us that have, set the path for the development of great companies. Great tools were part of that.
So Robert, when you meet someone, I know Eddie introduced you just a little bit. Who do you say you are?
That's, it's my greatest honor to serve hairdressers. Not being a hairdresser is one of the greatest regrets I have. When I had the pleasure and honor of being chosen by Vidal to work for him as a vice president when I was 28.
Wow.
When we were in the development of a new product range, there was a gap of time from the time we completed the project until the time we're going to introduce it, which is going to be about 11 months. And Vidal suggested to me, if you would like, you could take a sabbatical, which means like a paid vacation, to go to the Sassoon Academy in Westwood. And I said, Vidal, I really appreciate it, but we're planning for a launch in Australia, and Canada. And unfortunately, I think I'm just too busy to take advantage of that. And that is singly my greatest professional regret.
Wow. Wow.
So it's my honor now to serve hairdressers. This is a unique position. I recognize the importance of it. I also recognize the value of this, the importance and the value of someone paying attention to what hairdressers do, because being a hairdresser is a fantastic profession. I mean, you get to look in the mirror and see the look on one of your customers' faces because of what you've created outside. They feel more beautiful inside. But it's a very challenging profession physically and emotionally. I mean, standing 8 hours a day with your arms outstretched, going through gyrations and standing on a hard floor and how far you reach for things. At the end of the day, many hairdressers feel broken. And that's why in 1994, my wife Marlene and I began Ergo Research, which was to research the field of ergonomics. And ergonomics is a term, and ergo this and ergo that, is tossed around a lot.
Just before you get to that, one of the girls that works in my office said, "Who are you guys having on this week?" And I said, "Robert Reed from Ergo Tools and Brushes," and I might not be saying enough in that name. And she said, "Oh, ergonomically correct." I said, "Whoa, I didn't say the word ergonomical, but yes, I do believe that's the root of what's going on here." So yes, I'm glad you're saying it, because I wanted to ask you that next. So perfect. Go right into that. How did you come up with the name?
Well, it's fundamentally based upon ergonomics, but ergonomic was just too long of a name.
Right.
Ergonomics are the relationship between yourself, your body, your tools, and your workplace. In a salon environment, it's everything from the floor to the ceiling. It's not only the tools you hold, but it's how far away they are from you. It's how far you have to reach for them. It could be the flooring. It could be the sound. Sound is an element of ergonomics also. So many different facets, but what we do know, based upon research and experience I had with my previous company, which is called Hikari, I'd been working with hairdressers who had become broken on the job. The hand was not created to do this thousands of times a day. So many hairdressers developed tendinitis, and through improper positioning of the wrist, carpal tunnel. And I was working with an insurance company called Fireman's Fund with hairdressers who had, they'd gone on workers' comp. They couldn't do what they loved to do. So the recognition from Fireman's Fund is there's a direct correlation between the design of the tools, the performance of the tools, to minimize effort. And also when it came to scissors, it was also how the scissors were reconditioned. So ultimately, at Hikari, we reached a conclusion with Fireman's Fund to develop a work loss prevention program, which included scissors, scissor service, and education. So I took that learning into Ergo to create a research company that was going to develop more about ergonomics.
Wow.
So what was the first tool that you developed? Was it the brushes, or was it one of the styling tools?
In the early days of Ergo, we just celebrated our 28th anniversary in June.
Hey,
The first tools were scissors, because my largest customer, which is Supercuts, wanted to have a very efficient scissors that all of their team could afford to use. And actually, they provided the scissors for all of their stylists.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Okay. And then from there, where was the bridge to start developing the Ergo research, because you have a very interesting program, the Art of the Blow Dry. And that program, if nobody's ever taken if for the people who have taken Art of the Blow Dry, you know exactly what am I talking about. But for those who have not, it's such an interesting program on teaching the stylist not only body position, but the proper way of using the tools and the most efficient way of maximizing a blow dry to increase volume and style for it to last, in addition to not just create the shape, but for it to hold and last. So how did you guys develop that program? Was that with the brushes already in mind, or was that before the brushes?
That was, all companies and all people go through evolutions of who they are, what they do, and how they do it. In the early days of Ergo, we were a research company. Our customers came to us and said, your research is very expensive. We like the details that you present to us, but we would more like to purchase the product and receive the education and training free. So we evolved into providing scissors. That was in about 1996. As we continued to grow, and there were other elements we had to get involved in, because during that time there was a big scare about HIV, so we got involved in disinfection. But as we evolved, in 1999, I took a trip to our factory in South Korea, which is where we were producing our scissors, and I saw these very interesting irons. So there was a concept of smoothing hair that began in 1999. That seems so long ago. When you speak about 1999, Prince comes to mind too. But I saw these tools that were intended to create smoothness in the hair. So I saw first a flat iron, and I saw variations of the flat iron with smaller sizes, concave sizes, texturizing irons. So I came back and I said to my wife, Marlene, I said, I'm just fed up being the scissor guy. I think we need to expand into these tools. So I took examples of these tools to just about every major company in our industry. And I said, I see a trend of smoothness and smoothing hair, which would be perfect with the types of products that you're introducing. All their artistic teams loved them, but no one in those companies could pull a trigger. So in 2000, we took the big step forward and we produced our first production of a flat iron, and it was 50 pieces. So we produced 50 irons. It was a big risk at the time. We had the world's ugliest packaging. On the outside of the box, it said, Hollywood's true secret. I'm sure somewhere I have that original art file.
I remember that packaging. That
Eddie, RJ said to turn your volume up. We can't hear you. He can't hear you as well as Robert and I. Okay. So you were around for the original packaging, huh, Eddie?
I was, and I remember that packaging, and the iron was great, but yeah, the packaging was it was not appealing.
The day.
Yeah, I'm happy to say we actually have people who still have some of those original irons, which are in working order, and they would love them. And they say every great idea comes around again and again. So it's possible we might revisit those. But we evolved, and we evolved starting working with distributors, family-owned businesses that could tell our story, because we always aspired to be more than just a transactional company in selling something. We believed in education, and that meant mastering the tool. So we continued to grow our business with family-owned distribution, and then another calamity hit. And you remember the world in 2009. 2009, just about the whole world went into a meltdown economically. And during that time, every single one of our small family-operated factories filed a bankruptcy of one type or another, all within 30 days. Wow. So in 2010, we had to put Ergo to sleep because we had no production resources. Wow. We had a successful company. Fortunately, we were financially healthy, but we had to go another course and, took some side jobs and developed some tools for some other companies until I started to have this inspiration about getting back to our roots, which is ergonomics. And I started to ask my friends, like my friend Tony Beckerman, who is with me at Sassoon. I asked him, what are the fundamentals of a blow dry? How do you know how to blow dry? And he shared with me simply, a finish is in relationship to the haircut. And most people are not familiar with how to get started and how to plot their plan, how to create their strategy. So I started to think about an educational program, and we conceived the art of the blow dry. We recognized blow drying is simply the most fatiguing aspect of hairdressing. It's the most physical, it's the most repetitive, and for some people, it's the least amount of fun. So they get the least amount of joy in the finish because of all the rigors of doing it. So we created the concept of the art of the blow dry to further our belief in the mastery of the tool. And that led us to start to think about, well, how could we make a blow dry more efficient? How could we make it faster? How could we change the experience for the hairdresser? How could we create a better outcome? So we started to work with our factories, and we had several ideas. One of the most striking ideas was, why don't we change the way a brush barrel accepts the hair? Why don't we create a barrel that's wider, one that could accept more hair? So if you could take wider sections, you would take fewer sections. If you take fewer sections, you'd automatically finish faster and get your shoulders down in a more comfortable position. We also started to look at what it looks like for the hairdresser. You know, everything about hairdressing is picking up and gripping a tool. So I began to consult with micro hand surgeons that informed me that when a tool has a hard surface, and if your hands are wet or slippery, subconsciously, to maintain control, you grip it more firmly. And the number one injury for hairdressers is tendinitis. It's an inflammation of the tendons from gripping. So we developed our silicone handle.
Wow.
And then we started to look at how a brush bristle moves through the hair and how historically brushes have been thought of, used, and developed. And there hadn't been any change in the technology of a bristle. And we recognized that, well, there are belief systems. Some of them are hundreds of years old about why brushes do this or why brushes do that, why natural bristles make the hair shiny. And I started to explore this by looking at photographs from 100 years ago of people's hair. It was kind of a weird thing to do, but what I recognized is there were a lot of shiny crowns, but a lot of frizzy ends. And I theorized this was because natural bristle brushes come from an animal. They have their own cuticle. And the belief is that sebum from the scalp makes the hair shiny. So how does that happen? Well, it happens because of the friction of a natural bristle brush. The cuticle from the animal creates friction on the sebum, which is waxy. It liquefies it, starts to move it down the hair shaft, and it's shiny for as long as that sebum can last. But on the ends of the hair, the animal cuticle and the human cuticle created an interlocking friction. And this is why there were frizzy ends. So the human cuticle wasn't as strong as the animal cuticle. So we started to think about, well, what type of material should we use? And that's how we conceived a nylon bristle, which is a perfect cylinder. When it's in its liquid form, when nylon's in its liquid form, we could add anything to it to change the properties of that bristle. And we started to experiment with adding heat-resistant materials. So we now use carbon, which is derived from charcoal, to increase the heat resistance up to 500 degrees.
Interesting.
On a trip to Japan, I was introduced to tourmaline, which is a crystal that is an element of our bristles. And tourmaline was being used in Japan for odor neutralization.
Interesting.
You know, in the old days, in America, we used to put a box of baking soda in a refrigerator.
Yeah.
Most people probably don't remember that. But
My mom still does it.
Yeah.
I still do it.
And in Japan, they were using tourmaline in a powdered form in refrigerators for that same odor neutralization. So we started to explore adding tourmaline for that purpose, odor neutralization, but we discovered that tourmaline had other properties. This is something I also learned in working with the L'Oreal Laboratories about the impact of heat on hair color. When you look at hair, of course, every hairdresser knows if the hair is dull, it's because light is being absorbed into the hair. When the cuticle is tightly compacted, it's reflective. The portions of the hair that appear dull to the eye are elevated. This can be from a variety of things that might impact it. It could be alkalinity, causes cuticle to elevate. It could be heat. We all know heat elevates the cuticle. It could be the environment, being outdoors and being exposed to the sun. So tourmaline has an effect upon the cuticle because the elevated portions of the cuticle carry an electrical charge called a positive ion, and tourmaline creates a countering charge called a negative ion.
Wow.
And when the two come in contact with each other, the impact is immediate with the constriction of the cuticle. This is why a brush is referred to as ionic. It's the presence of tourmaline, which is a permanent component of an ergo bristle, and as it comes in contact with the hair, it automatically causes the cuticle to close. It's really quite amazing.
It really
And
is.
so tourmaline's in all the bristles of all of your brushes, or just specific ones?
Yeah, if you can imagine when you have a black vat of liquid nylon, I should say, when you have a vat of liquid black nylon and it's heated, we add it in a little carbon, and then we add in a little tourmaline. As they're mixing this up, it becomes a permanent component of the bristle. It's not a coating.
Wow.
So the property lasts forever.
That is fascinating.
It really is a huge difference when you do a blow dry and how the shine is continually starting to generate from start to finish through every single section. And then when you finish the blow dry and complete the blow dry and you start running your fingers through to put the style into place, the feel of the fingers through the hair, that smoothness, because that cuticle has been locked down and sealed, and that's where all the reflective shine is coming from, because light is now being able to bounce off the surface of that hair shaft. It truly is an amazing thing. I don't know, you guys probably remember this. I don't know how many of our watchers are going to remember this, but once upon a time, people used to smoke.
Saying we're old? Are you saying we're old?
No, I'm saying
When
you're
you guys
experienced,
are
very,
remember-
very experienced.
Go ahead.
You know, people used to smoke in the salon.
Oh, yeah.
So when we would do
And
the
in
blow
airplanes.
dries,
And in airplanes. Yeah.
and in airplanes, that's right. That's right. So I used to stay open really late at night on the weekends to do blow dries for the ladies that would come home from the bar before they went home. I would do the blow dry so it would take all the cigarette smell away from their hair, and I did that with the Ergo brushes.
Wow.
Wait, every hairdresser knows this but may not understand why. Two things. Number one, John Delaria, a wonderful hairdresser who's no longer with us, told me one time that hairdressers see with their fingers.
True.
Right. And so, hairdressers have a great sense of touch, but also the eye tells you a lot about what the hair is going through. For example, in a blow dry, when you begin and the hair is wet, the hair is shiny, right? It's
Right.
shiny because, I guess it's shiny because of the water. But as you heat the hair with a dryer, the cuticle elevates, hair goes through a period of appearing a little bit dull because the cuticle is elevated. The purpose of the heat is elevate the cuticle. Purpose of the airflow is to remove the moisture.
Right.
And as the cuticle must necessarily close, because you always want to end up with a very tightly compact cuticle, you can see hair go through that evolution: shiny, dull, shiny.
That's right. And I love watching those old movies when, I don't know if frizzy hair was the goal or if they just weren't seeing it. Olivia Newton-John passed away a few days ago, and my wife loves tributes. And so we watched Xanadu the other night as a tribute to Olivia Newton-John. And although her hair was beautiful in the end, all of her support characters had the frizziest hair. Now, I personally loved that big frizzy hair. I'm an 80s guy, you know, and I loved it. But I thought, could these hairdressers not get flat, smooth hair? What was up with that? Was it our eyes? Was it our touch? Was it just our what we thought was the thing to do? But then I noticed some of the characters did have like Olivia herself had much smoother hair. So obviously there's a talent difference in stylists also. So I like the fact that we're covering education as well as the brush, because I don't think somebody just going to buy the brush is going to be a better hairdresser, right?
It might make them feel better about it.
Right.
But you're right. You're right.
But it's gonna. I think it's important that the education is part of it, and I love the fact that you brought up the art of the blow dry, because in my own salon, I do a little training once a week just to pass on some of the things that made me successful. And it's surprising to me to watch people blow dry hair. And you are right. It's all over the place. It's just all over the place. And then some people think they're done and then go straight into styling with damp hair. It's not even dry yet. And they just can't get that finish look. So I just like everything I'm hearing. I love the organization. I think education is just as important as the tools. And Eddie is so excited about your tools that he came to help me do some educational videos for our extensions a few weeks ago. He brings a few of the new tools with him, hands them out to the hairdressers. Try this, try. He's testing your product behind your back. He hands one of my stylists this, what would you call it? It resembles a flat iron, but it doesn't close. It kind of stays open. You put the hair in it, and it worked more like a curling iron, but looked like a flat iron. Talk about that a little. That was a
You're
fascinating.
confusing. That was a different tool. That was not an Ergo styling tool.
Oh my God!
That was
really?
a styling wand. That was a different thing.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
No,
okay,
because I wanted her. Because what happened was I handed her.
No, but you bought Ergo tools too.
Yeah, because I handed her the Ergo flat iron.
Okay.
And then I handed her this styling wand, and I wanted her to see the difference, what felt easier or what felt better.
My mistake. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, you weren't there for the whole conversation when
you're right.
I was first starting to show it to
and I see him with Ergo tools. Okay, so you're mixing some tools up there. Whoops.
Yeah, because she was saying, it was Vivian actually.
Yep.
And she was talking about the butt crack when you curl one side of the head in the back and then you curl the other side of the hair in the back, and if you don't mix match the curls, you end up with the butt crack down the middle back of the head.
Right. She didn't want to say it.
Bernard, speaking about, from a salon owner position, one of the greatest challenges is ensuring a great outcome for every guest experience, right?
Yes.
So there are a lot of disciplines in salons that lead to that. Disciplines, everything from answering the phone to providing a consultation to how you do a shampoo service. But the disciplines that most people think about are hair cutting, which is taught hands-on, or hair color and hair color formulation and application. It's always taught hands-on. But most finishing is taught through demonstration. And when you demonstrate something, everyone sees it, interprets it, and does it differently. So that's one of the challenges in finishing, is if you have everyone having the same disciplines at the beginning of the service and proceeding through the service, but you have an undisciplined end result, well, what do you end up with?
A weak finish. Yeah, right.
A weak finish. So that's why salon owners really embrace the art of the blow dry, and in many salons, it's part of their onboarding process. This is our approach to finishing hair in a way that's physically better for your body, because we speak about body positioning. It's better for the outcome of the finish because it provides you a roadmap about how to use a variety of brushes. That's why we produce 10 different brushes in our collection. There is a brush for there's a reason for every brush. And, some of the trends we've been discovering through our own professional store is that many of our retail customers are purchasing more than one brush because they're seeing their stylist use more than one brush. I mean, you need more than one brush. You need a brush for detangling. You need a brush for maybe creating more tension, and you need a brush for creating more volume.
I would definitely agree with that. So we a little self-serving here. We restyle some synthetic wigs, and we'll use a round brush with steam sometimes. Would there be a specific brush that would not melt under the heat of the steam that you would recommend?
That would depend upon the level of moisture in the hair, because what we've experienced, and some of these things are really unknown, and there isn't a scientific investment to find out the answers. But you could take an Ergo brush, because of its carbon composition, you could put the hottest dryer that you could discover up against the brush, which we have done, and leave it there for hours, and nothing would occur to the brush bristle.
Oh, wow.
But in some instances, yeah, I mean, that's our simple testing. But we have had bristles seem to almost get to the melting point, because we see them after a finish and they look kind of crinkly. We've attempted to duplicate this, and we think we understand if you begin a blow dry and the hair is soaking wet and you're using a brush through it, there is an exponential growth of the heat somehow that is beyond 500 degrees. Even though the output of the dryer is probably relatively low, maybe 240, 250 Fahrenheit, the blocking of the airflow, if you have the nozzle in direct contact with the very wet hair, the steam must grow exponentially and can create some softening of the bristles. They cool in an irregular form. So they haven't melted, but they've gotten very close to that point.
Interesting.
We think it's a good practice, and we present it in the art of the blow dry, that the purpose of a bristle is to separate the hair. The purpose of the heat is to elevate the cuticle. The purpose of the airflow is to remove the moisture. So if we let each of those tools do their job, the best way to accomplish that is take sections that allow you to clearly see the bristles, keep the dryer nozzle away from contacting the bristle and the hair, to prevent airflow blockage of the dryer, because that can also increase the heat level, because it causes air to back up into the dryer heating element, causing it to fire twice as hot. That's why dryers eventually break down. And you'll have a faster dry by taking thinner sections, allowing the bristles to separate the hair, allowing the heat to elevate the cuticle, allowing the airflow to remove the moisture without going through the hair 10 or 12 times per section. It's all more efficient. It's kind of slowed down to speed up.
You know, and I'm glad you brought that up about slowing down in order to speed up, because everybody thinks working faster is working harder, is working smarter, and all of that. One of the things that you guys also talk a lot about, I don't, you know, it's something that I've observed over the years, Robert, and you do this very eloquently. The conversation that you have with hairdressers and stylists, and especially during the classes and the programs as well too, you're always talking about why the client chooses the professional stylist and what the professional stylist's promise is to do as a services back to the client. And there really is this relationship through this conversation with each other.
Well, think about this, everyone. Why does someone choose you to provide them a service or to provide a product? It's because of your value, right? I mean, the number one reason why guests choose a hairdresser is always about the quality of the hair. But what's the number one reason why they leave?
It's because they're satisfied. Why they leave the stylist is because they're unsatisfied.
They're unsatisfied, or they're unfulfilled, or because of communication. So, you know, been speaking a lot lately about, are we in a recession or are we in a retraction? Economic recession or economic retraction? I think it's a retraction. So people are pulling back for sure because things are expensive, which is, that's inflation. We can't control that, except when it comes to, the cuticle, the hair. We can control that inflation. But why do people choose you and why do they stay with you? Well, they choose you generally because of the promise of better hair. They stay with you because of the level of the service and communication that you provide to them. So in an economic retraction, as we first recognized here at Ergo that, there's an economic retraction, we started to evolve our message in social media. Of course, it had always been about, shine. It'd always been about performance. But we had to create more value in an Ergo brush. So you may have seen some of our messaging that says longest lasting shine, longest lasting brush. It's all about creating value in a service. It's about delivering more than what's expected. And I was just looking today before our conversation on YouTube about how many videos are there that teach you how to blow your hair dry. I stopped at 5,000.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
There must be tens of thousands, maybe 1 million demonstrations of professionals and consumers in drying their hair. So if you want to create more value, well, the salon is an oasis, always has been a social oasis. People still are going to go to a salon. They're going to spend differently. They're going to think differently about where they go. So think about how you can create more value as a hairdresser to your guest. And we think it's about discovering what they need to know about how to finish their hair, because ultimately there are few things that are as true as this. It's what we don't teach our guests about how to care for their hair that come back to haunt us.
Definitely.
Number one, if you're thinking about color, well, if you don't teach someone the correct products to use and correct tools to use, the impact of heat is going to cause some color degradation.
Yes.
If you're thinking about extensions, well, extensions, if a guest doesn't understand how to use a brush, they're going to come to you and they're going to say, my extensions are coming loose. So It behooves us to teach a guest all the time about how to recreate their hairstyle at home. So here's a simple way to do it. As a point of differentiation, if a guest was in your chair and they learned something every time they were in your chair, already that's different than any other experience they have anywhere else. So you have a greater chance of retaining that guest if you're always delivering new information that they couldn't find elsewhere. One simple question might be to take a brush and place it in the guest's hand and ask them the simple question, will you show me how you get started with your blow dry at home?
Yes.
Because a guest will then reveal to you all their fears about using a brush, about how to dry their hair. Every woman has a hair story. If you doubt that at all, next time you're out and you're served, whether it's in a store or whether it's in a restaurant, if you ask your waitress, what have you learned from your hairdresser about how to blow dry your hair at home? They will generally tell you, have a one-word answer or two, not much.
Right.
So if you recognize that everyone has their own hair story, their hair regimen, and you can help them by discovering what they need to know, they're going to think of you differently. They're going to be even more proud to sit in your chair. And I can tell you this, most mothers do not teach their daughters how to use a round brush, nor even detangle their hair for that matter. Right. So these are two things that you can share that are distinguishing factors for why people not only have chosen you, but why they continue to stay with you. It's because of the quality of the experience, the information they receive that sets you apart, and also serves as the beginning point for referrals. Someone else says, my hair is so frizzy. Oh, you need to go see Bernard because he'll show you how to blow dry your hair properly. That's where
You're gonna do a blow dry when we get together next.
Yeah. Well, I just went through one of the most basic classes with my own stylist. I started thinking so I've got a range of incredibly good to pretty new stylists. And I thought these next 2 weeks, what would be the most impactful thing that I could do that would change them all at the same time? And it was both blow drying, well, I should say all three: blow drying, curling, and flat ironing hair. Basically, the finish was the two stronger ones, because when my salon coordinator wants to post pictures, she has to run it through my wife, and my wife has to pick. And I said, look, I'm going to be honest with you guys. Vivian, the one we already mentioned, has the most posted pictures on our salon Facebook page. Why, guys? Why? It's the neatest looking hair. It's the smoothest ends. Her curls are done so well. What is she doing different? Vivian, come here. Curl one of our stylists' hair right now. Talk about what you're doing and why. And so I can see the importance of educating on how to use the tools. That's why I brought it up earlier, because it's a shame that you said most mothers, most schools, cosmetology and or barber schools, don't teach it well enough either. I would say there's probably not a school way to teach it is the biggest problem. It's usually whatever instructor is in during your stay at school is either really good at it or not really good at it or somewhere in the middle. And so all the students getting out of school are just coming out at all these varying skill levels for styling hair. So for me, I was just like, let's just make those ends a little smoother today. If I can just change that, we're going to get more posts on Facebook. We're going to get more clients wanting to come in. If I could just get everybody to finish a little bit better, and I'll work from the end backwards for now. So I started with the the curling iron, and then the flat iron. And now we're kind of going through blow drying. And I didn't hear either of you mention you're talking a lot about blow drying. I'm just wondering, I want to see the art of the blow dry now since I haven't. But is there some sort of power dryer getting rid of most of the moisture before we even put a brush to it? Just a dryer and fingers, or is it a paddle brush? I heard you guys talking about a paddle brush earlier. You want to touch on that at all?
Well, Robert, one thing I've learned from you that has stayed with me for many, many years, you told me that your hand is your greatest detangler, and it's your greatest power tool. You taught me that a long time ago.
5-finger brush. So we begin by removing moisture with our hands. We can then gravitate to using, for example, one of our polishing paddles to begin to smooth the roots by using the form of the head shape. That allows you to remove moisture. Is there a specific moisture level? Well, once again, I said John Delaria taught me hairdressers see with their fingers, so you have a great deal of sensitivity. The range probably is remove 50 to 75% of the moisture before you go into the finish. Otherwise, the hair is hyperelastic. Some hair types, like highlighted hair or fine hair, those two hair types, hair that's been highlighted may be 50% more elastic, hyperelastic, when it's wet. So we developed a new fiber for our super gentle brushes to address this. It goes through the hair fiber differently.
Nice.
So recognize that hair is at its most fragile state when it's wet. It becomes less elastic and stronger as you remove moisture. You don't want to have the hair totally dry before you put a round brush into it, because again, we're reforming hydrogen bonds, which are water-based. And so we need some moisture in the hair in which to form the new bonds and allow them to cool in that new form. That's my perspective on that. Yes, the hand is the most gentle way to get started. And, the power of touch for a hairdresser, it's really powerful. So we should always remember that power that's in the hairdresser's hands by touching someone. And I think that's a good way to get started. The blow dry could be a little scalp massage at the same time.
Is the hot razor still a popular tool for you?
Well, you're all over the place today.
I am. I'm hitting my favorite tools. I'm sorry.
But
Yeah.
Bernard he's excited. He really is excited to ask these
Well,
questions.
do you
Uh,
still sell hot razor?
yeah, we produce the hot razor, which is unique to us, and many people don't know the origin of the hot razor. But the hot
Well,
razor
I
was,
know with hair extensions, it's very counterproductive to in the very early days, you put all this hair on a person's head, and you were taught in school, or I guess just out of routine, shampoo the hair, wet the hair to cut the hair. And so when you go in wet, this big new mound of hair that you put in dry, you start to realize, wow, I just wasted another hour of drying hair. I should have just cut it dry. And so the progression of learning how to cut hair dry, which was not a usual thing in school, progressed into what are good tools to use for cutting dry hair. And the hot razor was one of the greatest inventions for cutting on, because it's preferred to use it on dry hair, I presume, and I'm gonna let you talk more to that. But it was a great tool for extensions. I wanted to get it out there before we finished. I know I bounced all around.
so the hot razor was an inspiration from a personal experience I had in 1994. I became injured at a hair show and dislocated my hip, and it led to many operations.
Oh, wow.
Many operations over a 10-year period. And in one of the surgeries that I had, the doctors were using an electric scalpel, a heated scalpel.
Oh,
So this
wow.
became an inspiration. They used that to cauterize the vessels, which means, on the ends, basically fusing the ends of the vessels so they wouldn't bleed as much. And I began to think about how a razor and how scissors work through hair. Fortunately for me, I had a friend working at the University of Miami, Dr. Pat Furlong, who also worked with me at Sassoon, and he had access to a scanning electron microscope. This microscope was valued at over $1 million, and it allowed you to see hair magnified up to 10,000 times. So we had the time to see how scissors affected a haircut on the ends when hair was moist and when hair was dry. And we began to think about how razors were typically used and what their effect always was. Razors were typically used on hair that was moist because if you used a razor on dry hair, it would pull on the hair, it would rip on the hair. It was very uncomfortable.
Right,
So
right.
I began to theorize what would happen if we used a heated razor blade on hair and cut the hair dry. So we began to develop the hot razor, working with the University of Miami to do that study and Dr. Pat Furlong, and we were able to demonstrate you could cut hair dry with a razor, and the sharpness of the blade cuts through the cuticle, which is very thin anyway, so that's not difficult to do. But the heat of the razor would seal the ends of the hair. So that gave that end of the hair the same integrity as mid-shaft. So the benefit of a hot razor is at its targeted temperature of 350 Fahrenheit, you can use it in any direction, especially on hair extensions, to remove weight, bulk, and cut the hair the way it lives. You can also use it on towel dried hair. But it is a brilliant tool. It's one that requires, most hairdressers don't have a lot of razor cutting experience. This is a brand new experience on top of any experience you've already had. So it is a matter of the texture, moisture level of the hair. It's the angle of the blade. It's the pressure of the blade. These are really nuances that make an artist an artist. So it's not something that you jump on a paying customer and ask them to pay. It's something that good hairdressers, great hairdressers, are always working on mannequins, experimenting with new techniques, new tools.
That's right.
It is a brilliant tool. And we have a brilliant senior artistic team member, Alan Papaleo, who is a master with the hot razor, and he presents our Art of the Hot Razor classes, which is our deep dive into razor cutting. It's 3 hours in duration.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah, all of the
And
education
fortunately for you,
classes.
Bernard, I'm sorry, fortunately for you, Bernard, Alan Papaleo lives in Charleston, so he's right nearby you.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, good. I think we were
Yeah.
supposed to have him on here one time, so I'm gonna have to follow up with that.
All right. Yeah, we'll follow up with that. I'm sure we can coordinate something to get Alan on at some point. Um, Robert, I have to brag about you just because it really is an honor to get to speak with you and have you on here with us. And I want people to truly appreciate and understand the commitment that you've had to hairstylists, hairdressers, salon owners, the industry, and overall. You recently, what was the award you got? It was an achievement award, a recognition for your contributions to the industry. I know you're humble. I know you don't like to brag, Robert, but that's a huge accomplishment.
This award was presented by America's Beauty Show, which is the trade show that we support in Chicago every year. We love the organization. We respect it because it's hairdressers supporting hairdressers. And I was fortunate to receive, I guess I was the fourth recipient of the Lifetime Service Award presented in the honor of Fred Piattoni, who was a former executive director. So it's called the Fred Piattoni Lifetime Service Achievement Award. And it was a great honor amongst my peers. I mean, the manufacturers and the educators within the industry that I have the most respect for, along with my own team, were there that night. And it just was a fantastic feeling.
It really is. And yeah, right. You're the fourth recipient of that. I mean, that is huge. That is such a huge achievement. But it's just a proof of how your dedication to the industry, your team's dedication, Ergo as a company and as a research company and as a provider of tools and brushes, what a difference it's made. So I really appreciate you coming on with us and spending the time with us today to speak to us about all this history, all this technology, and just the importance of being knowledgeable on why and how we provide the services that we do, because we do want to make a difference for our guests and for our clientele at the salon.
Well, I'd like to share with your stylists again, the times we're in aren't really that different from the times we've seen before, where the salon is the oasis. How can we make it a more valuable experience that a guest will really speak to their friends about? And, three words I can share about that is teach, teach, teach. Teach them something new every visit. It's something that they're going to it will make them even more proud they're sitting in your chair. It will cause them to speak more about you. The number one way to build business is through referrals. So teach, teach, teach.
That's really good. That's really good. There was a time when I was scared I'd have a client come in for a haircut and I would notice they look like they did their own color. And my first instinct was to go negative and say, you should not be doing that. I should be coloring your hair or have it professionally done. That's why you're having these challenges. And I thought, you know what? In the essence of serving that person, forget about me for a minute. Just being a real good friend to this client, I said, okay, if you're going to color your hair at home, I'm assuming you do. She's like, yes. I said, let me teach you how to do it. Let me tell you a better way to get a better result. And do you know at the end of that, she said, I didn't realize it was so complicated and you knew so much about why you do what you do. Why don't you just go ahead and do it?
Nice.
And I was blown away at this trying to hold it in and not share. I thought was a secret I was going to keep that would get me more customers. And it ended up being the opposite. So I started doing that more and more, just telling people, hey, if you're going to color your own hair, let me show you how to do it and tell you. And I can't even remember one that said, thank you, I'm going to go home and do that. Almost every single one then wanted me to do it. I don't know. Part of it, I think, was they thought, oh, wow, there's a lot more to this. Oh, wow, you know a lot about color, or just I need better color, and you obviously are the one that can do better because you just explained it to me. But in every case, that helped out there. So that doesn't happen as much with haircuts or other things, but I so agree with you. Let's keep it about the hair teaching and oh, here's a good one: hair replacement. I put hair on balders, thinning men and women also, and a lady saying, my hair system is getting really thin and I don't know what's going on. I said, got to be something that's going on at home because we treat everybody the same here, and it's not happening to other people with a similar look, similar hairstyle. And when you handed that brush earlier, it reminded me of that. I said, take this brush, show me how you're detangling your hair. She said, I'm very gentle. And then it sounds like this. She leans forward and throws her head over, and all you hear is, and I was like, stop.
Right.
That is not real gentle. So that was a great teaching experience, a little traumatizing, but at the same time, it reminded me, yes, I mean, let's talk about how you do your hair and let's see if I can help you do it a little better. Because if nothing else, I think that time in between me doing her hair and me doing her hair again, there's something happening in the middle. They're doing something to their hair or having a girlfriend or a mom or a friend do their hair. So you're right. If you could help teach them to have a better experience in the middle, who are they gonna? They're gonna love you for it, and they're gonna
love you. They're gonna love you. So remember, everyone has a hair story. Discover by asking the questions, what have you learned from your hairdresser about how to blow dry your hair at home? Hey, come on in and spend 30 minutes with me. I'll share with you how to get a better finish. And that experience, the power of the touch, the power of the education, will take that blow dry customer and turn them into a haircut and hair color customer.
I like that. Way to pick up new clients. Wrap it up, Eddie. Thank you.
Then that covers it. This is our special guest, Robert Reed, the founder of Ergo Research, styling tools and brushes. Thank you so much, Robert, again for spending the morning with us. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We will catch you all next week. Appreciate you all.
Bye, everyone.
See you soon, I hope.